Don't you hate when people ask you, how do you get spectacular photos? And I hate it because after 16 years of being a full-time landscape photographer, I still don't have a clear answer based on a set of rules. Take a look at this photo. This is a photo I did in the Dolomite. This is the edited version. Now try to rate it from 1 to 10 based on composition, light, how fast do you see the area that I wanted to portray as the subject. Now take a look at the same photo, but the non-edited, the unedited version. Rate it, again, based on composition, light, shadow. Just by looking at these two photos, you notice that editing can get you far away only if you have a strong base or a strong foundation in your photography. So even in the case of photos like this one, or maybe these photos, I could get this feeling, this visual, spectacular feeling only because I had a strong foundation for my photos.
There are lots of elements that go into creating an interesting and beautiful photo. Now, if you don't want to miss out the next time you are in an interesting location and you see some beautiful landscapes and you want to know how to capture them well, if you don't want to miss the opportunity, then stick around because that's exactly the topic from this video. My name is Toma and I'm a full-time landscape photographer. If you want to know more about my photo tours or my products, check my website. Let's make this video as short as possible because this way you can watch it over and over again and get the idea and understand really well what you need to do. There are three main elements that go into creating each photo. It's the technical structure, the artistic side, and the editing you apply to your photo. If I would want to talk about the artistic side, it would be almost impossible because I have some ideas, you have your own ideas. There are no rules that could define what fine art photography is. And the artistic side of each person depends a lot on the books you read, the movies you're watching, your art background, if you're going to museums or not. Cartier-Bresson also said that if I knew how to make an extraordinary photo, I would make one every time I click the shutter. Editing, it's another element that is very much connected to your artistic side. You need to learn a certain set of editing techniques. You need to learn the editing programs, but this doesn't mean that you're going to get extraordinary photos every single time. Before we continue, you may want to save this video because I guarantee it's going to be the most useful video in landscape photography that you're going to see. A good structure for the photo is achieved by using 4 elements. And the first element that I'm going to talk about is subject. When we talk about subject in landscape photography, we don't necessarily mean a physical structure. So it's more like the area of focus, of interest. Think about it like this. There's an area that has to attract the viewer's eye. That's your subject. It could be an interesting tree, an interesting peak, or it can be how the light shines on the forest, or it can be how the light looks in a forest. And here are some good examples of what a point of interest or an area of interest looks like. This is an area of interest. This is another area of interest. All these photos contain areas where your attention goes immediately. And that's what is creating an interesting and good subject. Now the subject needs to have good light on it, and it also needs to be unique. And it also needs to have a composition that supports it. Second element that defines the structure of a photo is composition. You need a clear composition, and you need a composition that supports the area of interest, the area that you have chosen to be the main subject, the main focus of this photo. Because if the composition supports another area or another subject, then your photo is not going to look interesting. Here are some examples on what I mean by good composition. This is an interesting composition. This is also another interesting composition. This is also an interesting perspective and a dynamic perspective. So you need to study composition, you need to understand it to the point that you get into a place and you immediately feel the composition and you see it. And for this, you need to practice. Now, you can find on my website an ebook on landscape photography, and you have over there some composition rules that are presented with examples if you want to learn more about landscape photography composition. And now let's talk about the third element that creates a good structure for a good photo, and these are settings. Now, the settings are very easily to decide on because you have chosen the point of interest, the subject. The subject needs to be clear, it needs to be well exposed. If you have light on the subject, then you're going to expose for the subject or for the area of interest. This is what good exposure looks like. And this is another example. And you may say that I'm photographing underexposed, but I say to you, no, I'm not photographing underexposed. I choose the subject or the area of focus to be in the proper light, and when I'm exposing for that light, the rest of the photo goes into a little bit of darkness, which I decide if I enhance it or not. And the fourth element is represented by weather and light. You need weather and light that looks interesting. Here are some examples. You see over here dramatic weather, contrasty light. You see fog, you see clouds, you see raw power of nature. This is what you need if you want to get a photo to look interesting. You need dramatic conditions. Usually conditions when people stay inside their homes. That's the moment when you go outside and you take these beautiful photos that everyone will look at and appreciate. For the purpose of you to really understand what you need to get interesting photos every time, this is the core essence. And if you like it, maybe you can go on my website and you can support me by purchasing my ebook or join me on one of my photo tours. But until next time, keep on photographing. Whoopsie, because it's the only way that you can get better.